Welcome to another episode of Fitted Furniture Makers podcast. My name is Alistair Johnson, and I run a small fitted furniture company in Sheffield in the UK called Freebird Interiors. Check the links below for more information about what we do, including online content on YouTube, podcasts, and elsewhere. Now, the format of this podcast usually is an interview with another woodworker, and we pick their brains on how they go about things to see what we can learn. So today, we've got Dan Brown with us, who runs an installation company in the Midlands called Brown's Installations, and may also be familiar to you as the maker of small green chairs for dolls' houses under the brand name You Scribe Jig. Hi, Dan.
Hello, Alistair. Absolutely perfect intro there. You nailed it.
Good. Yeah. I'm glad you think so. Where should we start, Dan? Why don't you just tell us a bit about yourself in whatever way you
Yeah, of course.
prefer.
No problem. Yeah. Well, like I say, most people will know me from You Scribe Jig. It's an idea me and a friend had. But previously to that, my background, my mum met my dad, and then, I'm only kidding. So I started off in woodwork in the joinery industry. I was about 17 years old. I did leave school with a full intention of being something in sports. I was really sporty as a kid, so I did a lot of football and played volleyball and things at a high level. But when you start working and you just think this is not for me.
Okay.
I was having that kind of a reflection.
So how far into that did you get?
I did a year. I did a BTEC in sports science. So back then you would get a qualification for a year. I don't know exactly what that qualification is for a BTEC, because once I did it, after a year, I didn't continue into the second or the third years or going to university or anything. I was just sat there one day with a friend, Mark, and we said, this isn't for me. And the funny thing is I actually went to college to be an electrician.
Oh, really?
I signed up to be an electrician. Don't know why. I just looked down the list and I thought, well, that looks pretty good, and the pay looked good. There was no spaces on the electrical course, and the other two left were joinery and bricklaying. Well, I'm not really for the outdoors and freezing cold, so I thought, what I'll sign up for the joinery course. I had done it at like school, when you do woodwork and design technology and things like that. So I actually had good grades in woodwork. And when I was going to college, you remember how old are you, Al? Sorry.
People ask me that question and I panic because I forget. I'm 39.
39, well, I'm 36, so okay. We're not far off the same generation. Now, can you remember you used to go and see a man or a lady at the school for like careers advice or careers advisors?
I do, yes.
I can remember I went to the careers advisor and she said, pretty much, you should do woodwork. You did really good in woodwork. All your paperwork here in front of me said you should be a woodworker. And I was like, nah, I don't want to be doing that. Huh. But long story short, so went to college.
So did that happen before you chose the sports? That she'd already told you that?
No, it was after. So
okay.
The careers advisor at school, say we were at school that far back.
Yeah.
Was about as much use as a chocolate fire guard. Then, it was a bit of a joke.
I always find it quite an ironic career, really.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
you were advising people on careers when they really don't know how to tie the laces in some instances, even at 16. So then people, we won't rip them apart, but it's probably a very vague job. Pretty partly being the school nurse, really, isn't it? People come in, you stick them a plaster, and you can't even give them a paracetamol these days.
and it's probably more this way now, but I remember it being they'd take a few questions, sort of input it into something. I forget if they had a computer at that time, but it's kind of like these questions result in this likely career.
I think it was more of akin to, can you remember them little origami paper things that you could make and you could write red, blue, green on, and you could just open them in 4 different ways?
I do.
I think my
daughter was just making one. You're right, yeah. So you see what comes out.
I think they just sat there and goes, because let's be honest with you, I paid attention in school, wasn't most academic. And my school was a little bit rough around the edges, fair to say. Okay. So I think what they did, they just put you in a queue, they give you your TB injection, they sat you down, they got the origami thing out and went, pick a colour. And you pick red, then you pick a number, and the literally goes, right, bin man, lorry driver.
Well, they almost might as well, mightn't they? Because how many people really... I mean, if you're going to someone for careers advice anyway, you're not quite sure what you want to do, And whatever someone tells you, I wonder how many people stick with that anyway. So many people don't really know.
Sometimes I admire people. I look at people that stuck with something from a very young age and become masters of it very early, and then, you know, they seem to be ahead of the game.
Yeah.
But then also I think that's quite boring. You've not really done much else in your work life. Like, I've worked some pretty rubbish jobs, you know, like pretty rubbish.
Okay, you've got to give us an example now.
Well, I've worked at Burger King.
Mm-hmm.
That was to be actually, when I think about it, that was actually a good job because you got food for free, and you could do it really hungover, which is probably half of my youth.
And that sort of food probably helps.
Yeah, well, we will know when you're young that you want to go out. You have 10 pints. The next day, there's 3 things you want to eat. One's either KFC, one's Burger King, and the other one's probably your pizza.
Yeah.
But so I went to see the careers advisor, woodwork. Like I say, long story short, I started on the joinery course. A friend of mine was working at a local joinery company within like walking distance from me, and I didn't really want to be in full-time joinery college because I was now 1 year older than the kids I was with in the class, and 1 year at that age is a big difference. From 16 to 17, you know, was a huge difference. So luckily, I've pretty much found my feet with woodwork very fast. So I sat there in the joinery class, and obviously at that time I had some part-time jobs. Like I said, I'd worked at Burger King, and you know, your work ethic slowly improves. You know, I was less likely to sit in the class and mess around. So I cracked on, and within, say, the first 3 months, I'd done, say, 6 months of the syllabus. So I'd raced through it. And my friend who was working at a local joinery company said, there's a job come up for apprenticeship. Do you want it? So literally told me lecturer there and then that I'm going. I got in my car, drove home to get changed to go for an interview, sat down with the guy, gave me a quick interview. He told me that I was going to be earning 66 quid a week, and I would get 86 quid a week if I worked a Saturday morning. And the rest was kind of taken on from there then, really. That was a small joinery company that I started at when I was 17.
So that was an apprenticeship, was it?
Yeah, so I hadn't finished my joinery qualification at the time, because obviously I was only 3 months into it. So how that worked would be that it was a little bit different now. There was day release and there was week release. So I started doing week release for quite a while. So 1 week every month I'd be at college. And then that slowly dwindled down to you only need to be there for a few days, sometimes 2 days, sometimes, like say again, 4 week. But majority of that was just paperwork, because they would assess you for the work you were actually doing at work.
Yeah.
So, and with it being
that's how NVQs work now.
Yeah,
do you know? Was it an MVQ then? Because the names changed, don't they?
I think it was. I think all my qualifications in joinery carpentry are MVQs. I'd have to dig them out from my mum's loft because I don't know where they are. No one's asked me for them in the whole entirety of me working life. So
you were saying, what you saying on Instagram? Someone was saying about those packs. What are they called now? Where you had this
the National Record of Achievement. Can you remember them?
Yes, I do. And you said it, and I thought, oh yeah, where is that? And I got it out and never opened it since carefully putting them into the plastic sleeves at school.
Well, at school, you were, for at least 4 or 5 years of your school life, adding to your National Record of Achievement.
Yeah. Remember that, yeah.
And I don't think I ever had to take it to an interview. But maybe some people did for different kinds of work.
Yeah,
but the kind of work that I went into, I mean, I'll be honest, if you're going for an interview at Burger King, I can't look for your National Record of Achievement for any of your skills.
Well, have you employed people? Have you taken on apprentices?
No,
or others?
No, not as such. I have had people who've worked for me on a self-employed basis, maybe as apprenticeships, technically, shall we say. So they were learning from it, but they weren't going to college. A couple have tried to get into college, but they always seemed to be a bit older, so they've probably missed that boat, or they thought they hadn't missed that boat. And to be honest, it never really worked out for me, driving to pick people up, because most of my work was site work. Then you'd get there and they were late, or They send you text
Yeah,
messages you're driving there to say, I'm not feeling very well. And just them kind of
it
things
is
infuriated
sadly
me.
quite hard to find a good worker, but they are out there, and I've been
Oh,
fortunate.
yes. I mean, I can completely agree, mate. There's some great people out there. I mean, like, fantastic. Even some of the kids. I mean, even like, say, for the You Scribe Jig, we get approached by colleges and lots of young lads. I mean, they've got some balls on them. I give them that because they always ask for freebies. They don't, But I like to see the profiles, and there was one recently. I'll have to try and send you the link, or I'll post it to you on Instagram. Good young lad, Jody from JTech, and Julian from DeWalter spoke to him recently. He's got a little garage workshop, and he's making stuff. And there's some great lads out there. It's
Well,
part and
this
parcel.
is it. Talking about the National Record of Achievement thing, I know that as an employer, a reluctant employer who has ended up taking people on. Sorry, I say reluctant. I'm really glad to have the staff I have.
I know what you mean,
but
mate.
I never saw myself being an employer really.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see it from the other side of the fence, because straight away I'm a lot less interested in whatever paperwork or qualification that person's got than how they come across and their attitude. And you can gauge a lot pretty quick.
100%.
About so it's, have they got a bit of get up and go, a bit of initiative? Are they willing to knuckle down, or are they just trying to impress you? I see, as someone who went down the academic route and then came to more of a manual trade, I see a bit of a trap in the whole academic setup, where you get into this mentality of you've got to have the piece of paper, you've got to tick the box.
Yeah.
And then often the people that excel, at least in business, where you just have to take more initiative, are the people who don't think that way, but just get on and knuckle down and work hard and do what has to be done.
Work ethic outweighs any qualification or piece of paper that you'll ever have in your life.
Yeah.
And that's just fact. Some of the best woodworkers, some of the best tilers, plasterers, plumbers, builders, roofers, the list is endless, I know, are not qualified. They just have got the nous, the work ethic, and the ability to put a shift in to learn. And you only learn through your mistakes and hard work.
Yes.
And I think kids should be taught, hard work pays off. I mean, it's tough. I mean, there's so many people on there, especially with social media and celebrities, just literally watering down industries with ideas of making very fast money without working hard. And the reality is, then people either have worked very, very hard, or you need to work very, very hard to get yourself in a position where then it becomes easier. We're not saying you've got to slog your guts out digging holes every day, but you pay your dues as you're younger, so that your experience, once you get older.
Yeah, and there's no real shortcut, is there? Or if you get lucky and somehow get a shortcut to supposed success, it's probably going to be a little bit fragile. Could easily fall apart.
Plus, it would also come down to your business acumen will get you very far in business. But if your skill set's poor in your work, you won't be busy. So it's a catch-22. You can be very good at, say, selling yourself or selling your product. If your product's poor, and then obviously that'll come back and bite you in the arse pretty fast. And I think that's kind of the most important thing, is if you can do your work good and learn from 17, 18, 19, 20 and become very competent in your work, so that you can stand in front of somebody super confident to go, I can do that. It'll charge you this much for it, but I can achieve that for you. If you can't, you're done for, aren't you? So that's the hard work. It's the initial stage, isn't it?
Yes.
And they're the kids, and they're the young ones that are worth the weight in gold.
Yes. And it's mindset. At the end of the day, it's mindset. It's an understanding that hard work will pay off, and that you don't get to do the thing you want to do all the time because you maybe need to pay your dues.
Very much
and, so. Someone that understands that from a young age is going to go far.
Very much so. And that also helps you in so many different walks of life. I think that the trades can be overlooked a lot of the time, especially these days with technology and social media, and the ability to start businesses, what we would consider a lot harder back then. Like, you couldn't do or promote your business or have half of the brilliant things, I'm going to call them, in business back then that you can now.
Mm.
You know, so the hard work ethic still needs to be there. Kids still need to learn, get your hands dirty in this job, especially.
Yeah.
That the other parts will fall into place from then, and that is the truth. I mean, you do a good job, you're going to be busy. You're not going to need to advertise as much. You're going to carry on getting repeat customers just from that, and you can't teach that. That's just something you're born with. I think hard work. Them kids lasting, they'll stick in the trade, and then ones that haven't got it, they go and find another job. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. So would you see yourself as more a tradesman or a businessman?
At this minute, I would definitely say I am 70% tradesman, but obviously with the UScribe side of things, I've had to learn pretty fast. So many more different aspects of business that I would never have ever even thought of being involved in before.
We're going to have to explain this UScribe thing to those that aren't familiar, but let's put a pause on that, just for those that are going, what on earth is this thing? Let's put a pause on that and sort of cover more of your trades work, because I've got these standard questions that I think people kind of expect, and then we'll perhaps get on to the. I'd quite like to hear the story of the UScribe Jig and how it came about. So we'll get on to that.
Good story, Alex. Great story.
Good.
It's going to be captivating.
We'll see. I don't know how much you've been sarcastic. So how do you make a shaker door?
Right, 2 ways. Well, I would say 3 ways, Al. 3 ways that I would make a shaker door. Flipping back to my background, so obviously when I was an apprentice, we had a bespoke fitted furniture and freestanding furniture workshop, shall we say. So we used to make a lot of furniture that would go to America and places like that.
Oh, really?
And and then we also made a lot of furniture for the showroom and the shop at the back, and also we installed quite a lot of furniture in the local area. So everything was traditional joinery.
I see. So solid wood. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, not necessarily solid wood. Obviously, if someone wanted painted MDF, that was always an option. But it was less common then, I would say. MDF was still frowned upon because obviously the formaldehyde and things that have been taken out of the product over the years. Plus, wood was a lot cheaper. You could buy containers of pine for a lot cheaper than you can buy containers of pine now. I think that comes down to the fact that we've cut it all down.
Probably supply and demand.
We're running out. Yeah, it becomes more expensive. So mortise and tenons, haunch mortise and tenons. Obviously, dominoes and things hadn't been invented by then, so it was all complete traditional joinery. They would all get cut to length, oversized PCs. Sometimes we would be fitting raised and fielded panels inside the doors, depending on the style. Sometimes we'd be adding cork beads, sometimes we'd be beading them after. So the amount of shaker doors and different shaker style doors that we made and came out of the factory was, we had a book of probably 20 different designs, fielded, raised arches, lots and lots of different types. But because we were geared up as a factory for making these things, it was almost process by process. So if I broke it down to you, so what would happen on a Friday, we would get a container delivery. So a container would turn up on a Friday. We would offload all the timber into different sections. So there'd be red pine and yellow pine, the oak and the beech, or whatever we would need that week. They would all then get segregated into the different sections for whoever will be processing what order, for example. So my initial start, I used to make beds and drawers for under beds. So if you just imagine a simple pine bed, 4 posts, headboard, slats, and then 2 drawers that went underneath.
Yeah.
It was all pretty basic joinery, but again, all the connectors, everything was mortise and tenon. And then, have you seen the little Allen key connectors?
Do you mean there's a type of screw that I use called a compromat screw that we actually buy with a posi head, but it comes with an Allen key with IKEA furniture. Is that what you mean? It's just a through screw.
Yeah, it's like a through screw, and then you put the actual fitting bolt into the timber itself.
No, I'm thinking about something different, but yes, I do know what you mean. It's a fine machine thread, and it's a wide
I forgot
head.
What it's called.
I've seen them just called furniture bolts.
Yeah, I've only used millions of them, and for the life of me now, when I should be an expert, I can't remember the actual name of them. But yeah, so pretty. But it was basic joinery, but
Yeah.
pretty basic beds. But obviously, that's how you start in the job. They don't go and chuck you into a 16-foot by 18-foot traditional bib dresser. You obviously learn slowly and build yourself up, don't you?
Yeah.
So we would make beds and drawers. So I would be then sat in the workshop going through my process. So I would get my timber, that would go into the crosscut. You would cut all your timber. If you needed to board up, you would take that to the next station where would you clamp all your boards up. So obviously if you needed something 12 inches, you wouldn't necessarily have 12-inch timber, but you would need to make the 12-inch timber. So you would oversize by, say, 12 and a half.
And were you then responsible for the manufacture of that bed, that whole bed?
Yes. So the process was, as the apprenticeship was, you start off, you brush up, you make tea. Mm-hmm. You have to be an expert making tea. You have to remember 15 cups of tea or coffee, or one of the old guys would possibly hit you on the back of the elbow with a hammer when you weren't watching. That was the kind of apprenticeship I was under. If you were stood and you weren't brushing, again, they'd clip you on the ear hole or they'd clip you on the back of the elbow with a hammer. You very, very fast and very, very soon realise standing still was the worst and stupidest thing you could do. Because when you're going home and your elbows are ringing and your ears are ringing,
did they ever catch your funny bone then?
Oh, funny bone, Al. There's no elbow left.
Yeah, that's the bad old days and the good old days, isn't it? Really, in many ways, it's that must have been an education and a motivation.
Oh, capital punishment, Al. you didn't slack, But these were old school guys,
Yeah.
Covered in dust, head to toe, no dust mask, with a small fag out the side of the mouth. These were the days. It was so old school. It was untrue.
Yeah.
But brilliant. Brilliant at the same time.
Yeah.
I would. This podcast had gone for 5 hours if I told you the stories.
I could listen. And
some of them guys were amazing.
I'm sure some people listening could, and I'm quite envious of that, of having that start. I'm sure there are downsides, but it must have been really good to be surrounded by really experienced experts in a proper big production setup. You must have learned so much.
Oh, it's brilliant. At the same time, you only remember the good things. There would have been days where it would have been really boring and repetitive. I've sat in a room for 7 days straight sanding boards. Because the job was these boards needed sanding because these guys needed to make such a product, and then it needed to go to the finishing room to be delivered on a Saturday or a Friday. So some of it was really tedious, when you have them days where you're like, oh man, this is scrap. But then you'd be sat in the canteen and one of the old guys would be telling you a story of when he was an apprentice woodworker, and you think, oh man, that's amazing. Some of the stories they tell you, and some of the life stories too. It was a different generation.
Yeah.
And some of the stories they're definitely not for podcasts, but that camaraderie and that. We call it the crack, don't we? That's part of the job. I think some guys now probably like the actual camaraderie and the crack on site than they actually do the job.
Yeah,
and that's part of the actual growing up phase.
Yeah,
but so that's how we would make most of the furniture. Everything was a traditional method. It would go through each station until you had the finished product of what you were making. So on a Monday, the boss would go, right, you've got to make 36 sets of drawers to go under this 36 different sizes of beds. Everything was kind of like a production line, so you knew what you were making. So it wasn't like, oh, I've got to go and make it up as I go along. It would be like, well, you've got 2 32-inch drawer fronts to make, 2 32-inch drawer boxes to make. They would all be dovetailed, but you would go to the dovetail station. You go to the overhead router station, the sanding station. There was every machine you could imagine.
Yeah.
Some of them were old woodworking machines.
Yeah.
Truly terrifying. You would be terrified whilst using the thing because the noises they make.
Yeah.
And the way they pull the timber through, and especially if you're working with something like oak or walnut, and you put it through the auto feeder, and it's going through the surfacer or the spindle, the noise was terrifying. And the overhead router was like, Home Alone, where he goes down in the basement and the fire opens its mouth and he's scared of it?
Yeah.
That was the overhead router. I had a fear of that machine.
Is that the same? Is that a pin router? Is that the same thing as a pin router?
It's basically, if you imagine looking at a router in a machine at head height.
Okay.
So the actual router itself is positioned at head height, and you feed the material through
Okay.
at that height. I know it's overhead router, and I can't think of the proper technical name, but we
So
used
do you
to a
mean
lot for
is it
doing.
hanging down rather than upside down
Yes,
under a
that's it. So
router table?
imagine looking at the bandsaw, for example.
Yeah.
And obviously at the top where the blade then starts to become exposed.
Yes.
Imagine the routers, the old, big, scary router is positioned at your head height.
Why
with
is
the
it
cutter.
head height? Is that just easier for feeding things through?
Yeah, I say head height. I'm only 5'7" now, so it's probably waist height for everybody else. But if we just call it overhead router, I like to say
Sure.
head height because you're
Yeah.
pushing it through.
Rather than
But
under the table. Yeah, I think
yeah,
it's what you're saying.
let's say more chest height out there. Yeah,
Okay.
so maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit there. But so it's like chest height. So what you would do is pass the material through. A lot of them would be putting on ovalos or moldings to go into styles for doors. If you know what I mean. So it's easier to push them through at that height and repetitiveness work.
And so does it mean you can do different cuts? So is it like the cutter's spinning with a little gap between it and the table, and then you can push the thing through on the table, supported on the table that the cutter's cutting on top. So that's quite different, then, isn't it, to a spindle molder or a router table? Yeah.
It's like say it was purely just for putting moldings onto rails and stiles for kitchen, bedroom, shaker doors, internal doors as well. So obviously we used to make internal doors and frames and windows, and so their moldings would go through.
What was the name of the company? Just out of interest, is it still going?
It was literally called Bespoke.
Oh, really?
That was it. Yeah. So in our local area, so it would have been possibly Bespoke Interiors Limited, Staffordshire, but that's where we're based. But it was just called Bespoke, and literally everything we did was custom made furniture. But majority of it went to shops in London.
Okay.
There's a couple around Swiss Cottage area.
Is it still going, as far as you know?
It's going in a different vein. The company changed, obviously, the fitted furniture market. The actual old school traditional furniture market completely fell off the world when 9/11 happened and IKEA became really, really popular.
Okay.
So a lot of our private orders changed. Everyone's taste changed. Everyone went to being very minimalistic. Lots of the fitted. Well, we used to do I would say freestanding fitted. So we would make furniture that would go to your home, but it wouldn't necessarily have fillers or top scribes or anything like that.
Made to fit a space.
It would made to fit a space, but shadow gap, so we call it.
Which is quite a good line of work to get into. I've often thought if you can charge bespoke prices but not have the fitting, scribing, etc.
Well, that's it. We used to turn up for the delivery. It would most probably be broken down into say 2 or 3 pieces. You would get there, assemble it in 2 or 3 pieces, and then go. It was very simple, very quick. Fitting times were hours, instead of days. But that was the industry then. But the majority of it used to come in. Again, another 2 or 3 containers would arrive each week or each month. That furniture would get loaded up and go around the world a lot. They used to go to America. Back in the day, America would buy a lot of British stuff because obviously it said made in Britain on. Don't really know if that was a selling point to where it went.
I wonder if it still would be. I suspect not so much. Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I think one main reason was I think what we could possibly make it a little bit cheaper than the Americans at the time, but the American market is more traditional. If you look at their kitchens and
absolutely.
You look at their homes, they are very much more traditional, modern. I'd call it.
My wife's from America, so I've visited a few times, and I've
all that.
Yeah, well, I've observed that the kitchens usually are face frame style, although a lot of them have transitioned now to using Blum hinges, but with mounting plates that you rarely see over here, a type of mounting plate that will fit onto the edge of the face frame, and then they'll still have an overlay door on that. But that seems to be the standard, and just generally, there's clearly much more of a fashion for furniture, often dark wood furniture. You see a lot more of that, where it seems less in fashion over here. And there's also noticeably a bigger culture of people having their own workshop, and workshops that are just a hobby workshop in the garage, which I would dream of, where people
next level.
Yeah, that's right.
Next level. I mean, especially with Instagram, you get to see a lot more people's shops, but they are amazing.
Yeah.
And whether they've got the material, maybe the materials are easily more accessible. I know a lot of the tools are cheaper in America.
I think so.
Yeah,
and I think hardwoods are cheaper. I might be wrong though. I know they're certainly more widely used, and MDF certainly seems a lot less widely used.
Yeah, no, they frown on anything MDF or chipboard, very much so. But again, it might just be a case of I think we forget America's such a massive place. Maybe they've just got access to things a little bit better than us.
Yeah, that could be. And anybody listening, I know we do have some American listeners. Do comment. What I usually do is I post an Instagram post about the podcast episode, and that often is the easiest place to comment because not all podcasting platforms seem to allow comments. So look in the description below if you want to make a comment. I'm talking to listeners now, not you, Dan. Sorry.
Oh no, I was agreeing.
Yeah,
with you.
Sorry. So yeah, comments description below. You'll find somewhere to comment. Tell us about what it's like in America. I don't know if you ever heard, Dan. I think it was an urban myth going around that MDF was outright banned in America, and for some time people would say, "Oh yeah, you can't buy it in America." And I thought, I'm sure you can. I'm sure people sometimes use it. So I don't know if that was ever the case, but there's a lot of myths around MDF in general, I find.
Yeah, no. I mean, I can remember, say when we started off in the job and the talk of, I mean, we used to use MDF for certain things, especially inside some furniture. So MDF might be used as rails or backs for rails. Nothing that would be seen or be actually used, but maybe just for strength and support on cheaper works.
Yeah.
And the emphasis was you should always be wearing a mask, respirator mask, when using the MDF, because we were informed that it had formaldehyde in, and everything was manufactured in China a lot at the time. Well, everything's made in China. So you were supposed to wear a mask when using or machining up the MDF, especially sanding it. So I think what a lot of people took from that was that America had banned it because of the glues were cancerous. But I don't think they did. I think they just stopped the boards with for formaldehyde inside, and I think they just used MDF more sparingly. They use a lot of ply, don't they?
Yes, they do like their ply. But I know I have a few people that comment on my YouTube videos that are using MDF quite a lot in America now, but sometimes struggling to source one that paints well. And there was one guy I think said it's John Gibson. He'll be listening. Hi, John. He said I think
Hi, John.
I think you said, John, that you did manage to find a supplier of Medite MDF, but probably very expensive.
Right, yes.
Because I think that's made.
Well, we've used the Velcromat a couple of times too.
Oh yeah,
that Velcromat.
Well, they don't like. I don't think they like people calling it MDF, the Velcromat people. But it basically is through coloured MDF, isn't it? But it's denser.
Yeah, I think MDF has just got. It's a bit like a dirty word sometimes, especially for the people that do high-end work. So obviously MDF is going to be frowned upon because you can get the same finish. Well, I say the same finish. That's probably not correct. You can get a very similar finish using MDF than you can with some woods.
Well, you can arguably get a flatter finish.
Oh yeah, definitely get a flatter finish than wood because of the
sort of swelling.
No grain.
Yeah.
But I think, like I say, sometimes it gets frowned upon for being a cheaper product.
Yeah, and it's a funny one because I don't know about you. I find myself trying to argue the corner for MDF in a way that I never thought I would, because I went into woodwork wanting to do solid woodwork, and I didn't think MDF was a great material. And I'm sort of on the fence about it. Most of what I do is MDF. That's partly for economy. It is also partly because it really is fit for purpose for painted work, and I see no point pouring money into hardwood that it's going to be painted white anyway, and it's going to have more issues of shrinkage and expansion and possible cracking and that sort of thing. But I sometimes sort of stop myself and think, well, yeah, it's not like it's the best material. I don't want to argue for it like it is the top-notch material. It's just got some properties that make it appropriate for a certain type of work.
I think, realistically, it comes down to client base, budget, and also realistic budget.
Yeah,
people. That was probably the bigger one, the realistic budget. Because if we could all get the customers, I mean, there's some guys I speak to regularly on Instagram who are making, absolutely gorgeous looking projects always working in hardwoods, making tables and chairs and kitchens and, one-off TV cabinets, and they look out of this world. But in my area, possibly your area, and the kind of customers that we have, that's probably not an option for 95% of them.
No, that's right. And the odd job that I've done with hardwoods, the amount of work is so much more. Like often way more than twice as much more, and the material costs 3, 4, 5 times as much, perhaps. And
very much so. Oak will go through your blades faster than MDF will ever do. So you've got, again, so it's not just the material cost; it's your machining cost, your labor cost, and your time obviously will go through the roof in comparison to the speed.
It's one of those things where it's very hard to price because the customer doesn't see the difference in real cost. And you, as the woodworker, this is where we often get tripped up, is we also think, well, I can't ask that much more because it just seems like it shouldn't cost that much more. But in my experience, it should. So then, you're back to MDF.
Oh, yeah. Oh gosh, I've luckily worked, like say, when I was in my apprenticeship years, Alistair, for some brilliant clients, customers. Where we're based in Staffordshire, we're really close to Cheshire, so footballers, and there's a huge group of wealthy people living around Alderley Edge and the Cheshire set, Nantwich. So we used to do a lot of work that way, and you would be on projects of hundreds of thousands of pounds. Houses that had been having spent millions of pounds on them. So you're paneling out rooms in solid walnut. You're making furniture out of solid oak. I still speak to people now that do them jobs where they're making desks for £100,000.
Really?
Just a desk. So, I mean, they're having walnut inlays. Crazy things that go into them. But the cost there. So that's the difficult part when it comes to pricing our job. I mean, even if you, like I do, like kitchens and bedrooms, even if you just want to put solid frontals on your work, that price is going to double just for frontals. So if you want to then make veneered inserts, God forbid anyone asks for a solid wood kitchen, I don't even want to know how much that would cost. So the reality is you need the client, you need the customer that's just going to say yes, and he's got a fair valuation of what it's going to cost, but at the same time, he's not going to fall over when you say, that's 10 grand, that's 20 grand, that's 30 grand. He's just going to go do it. Yeah. So that's the difficult part sometimes.
I was just going to say, there is an online company that makes solid oak kitchen cabinets for a certain market. And I've often thought, well, why really? Because I don't know if it's actually better. But that's a whole other debate anyway.
Well, that comes back to the other way that I make a shaker door out, as I buy it.
Yeah, so you didn't finish the story, did you? Because you told me how you used to.
In my work,
how do you do it now? Yeah, go on.
Nowadays, I would buy it. 9 times out of 10, I will price my work to buy the material in to fit it, because you could possibly make the same amount of money, or maybe a little bit more money, making it in your workshop, making it in your unit, or making it in your garage.
Really, by the time
you've collected them. What I mean is, you're maybe just keeping yourself busy, aren't you? I think we were just saying that obviously the client base will always dictate your ability to produce these either, I don't want to say low end or high grade of furniture, but you can.
Different markets.
You're always going to either upset somebody by saying I work by doing high end grade furniture with MDF when you can make it look high end, and you're also going to annoy people that work with MDF a lot when you say, well, it's not high end because I work with solid wood. It's very difficult.
Yes, there's loads of variables, aren't there, about how you go about it, even with a given material.
So, I work with a lot of chipboard and MDF. Yeah, I would say 90%, or not actually say 80%, 85% of my work is in chipboard MFC and MDF products that are painted or vinyl wrapped. That's my industry.
And do you have a workshop, or is it all bought in and straight to site?
So a lot of my work, probably 90% of it currently, is bought in. So I do a lot of subcontracting for a local firm that do kitchens and bedrooms, studies, everything that I do as is. So I can turn it to site, everything gets delivered, and I just concentrate on the installation. We do have a workspace. We do have a unit through UScribe that we can use. Me and Scott both use. We've got a little CNC down there for making some things for our work, a private work, because Scott obviously does a lot of his own private work too. Scott's the other side of UScribe Jig, obviously, yes. Well, it's not important like that, Alistair, but...
yeah. I sometimes, these days, sometimes I get contacted by people and they're first their partner. And I think it was after I did a bit of TV work. And
nice.
There was, just working with a lot of flamboyant designers and everything, talking about the partners in that sense. And then I got an inquiry from somebody who wanted to talk to me about kitchen fitting, just completely unrelated. And he said, "Oh yeah, I'd really like to. Me and my partner would like to meet up with you." And I just straight away assumed they were a gay couple because I was in that headset, and then discovered later it was purely a business relationship. But I was a bit confused for a while.
Yeah, partner can be construed. I mean, it's a bit of a joke. I mean, I'll often say this is my partner Scott when I should be saying this is my business partner Scott.
Yeah,
so people don't get construed that we're not.
Kind of need to clarify.
Yeah, we're
be sure
we're both got kids and families. We're all straight laced guys.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just thinking we need to move through the standard questions and get onto your You Scribe, which we'll begging to hear about. So
yeah, of course.
How do you make a floating shelf in an alcove?
Yeah, so again, coming back to traditional methods, how we would have made floating shelves for the company I worked for, we would primarily be using veneer ply or veneered MDF for the outer skin, shall we say. Mm-hmm. So we would layer it up. We'd use 2 layers with a framework inside, and then we'd always nose the fronts in solid wood. So, for example, if we're using oak veneer, we might be using 18mm oak veneer top and bottom.
Yeah.
We would always nose the front in solid wood, so the transition looked completely seamless.
Yeah.
And we would batten the wall, traditional method, batten the wall, scribe the shelf, slide it over. We'd either fix it with a few pins or possibly, if it was a very good fit, just a bit of adhesive and they would go nowhere. But mainly what I do these days, again, just because I do a lot of subcontracting for a good local firm, is they actually just send me, again, because I work primarily in MDF and chipboard, they just send me out blanks of, I think it's 28 or 32mm thick chipboard. So it's quite heavy, quite solid. And then I have what I like to call the death brackets to fasten to the wall. The job is very, very long-winded. It works great and they look great, but it's very difficult. If you get a chance, I have done a post on it on my Instagram page, my own Instagram page, Mr. Dan Brown.
Share it with me, and I can put a direct link to it in the description.
I will, Al, because I've done them many, many times, and there's no easy way of doing it, and there's no, I wouldn't say a better way of doing it. There's not really an option with the material that you get. So they come with these long brackets like rods that you fasten to the wall.
Yeah, okay.
And from them rods, there's a couple of Allen key fittings, little hex fittings that you can adjust the pitch to the height up and down.
Is it the sort of rod that has a back plate that you put 2 screws into?
Correct.
Or is it the sort of rod that you so you don't run it into a hole in the wall like a threaded bar?
No, it's not like the thread. No, because the with them obviously being 38mm chipboard, we don't make them excessively deep because people will overload them and that will just end up in failure. So we tend to reduce them. And most alcoves, if you're putting shelves, you're setting them back a little bit. So they aren't that deep, are they really, anyway? They're not super deep shelves.
We do them 25 centimetres or so. About 27 centimetres because we cut the boards 25 and we have a lip of 18.
Yeah, that's it. So if anything, maybe 200mm, 250mm deep shelves on average, shall we say. So these rods, if you use 2 or 3 of them, they're weight rated, and as long as your fixings are good, I mean, everything comes down to your fixing on your wall. You can do whatever you want, as you know, but if your fixing's terrible, they're going to fall off anyway. So if them fixings are good, they're not going to go anywhere. But what you need to do is then remove, obviously, the excess where the rod's going to go, and also router out the back.
Yes.
In almost like a catch plate for a door.
Yes, I understand.
So you router out the square and auger bit the position of the rod, add a few millimeters either side for a little bit of play, and then I will slide them on, again with a bit of magic, no nails or sticks so that once it's gone off, and you could, quite happily put decent weight on them shelves, so
And
that they're
they
going
do
anywhere.
carry weight, do they? Because I've always been skeptical of them and not really used them. Always been
Yeah,
skeptical of getting a good fixing
yeah,
into the wall.
we've used them quite a few times. In a few instances where we've even put there's a couple of alcoves where we've needed to fit glass at the back. So obviously, we wanted the floating mirrors over glass, smoke glass or mirrors. So again, we fitted them, battened out the mirror slightly so it's not affect the bracket, slide the shelves over the front, and they've worked fine. People put bottles and glasses and champagne and all the other kind of things that they like to put on them, and no one's ever called us back, so they must have worked out.
Maybe I should give them a try.
Touch wood anyway.
Yeah. So what would be your ideal project at the moment?
I'm quite happy, Alistair. I'm one of them people. I'm quite happy doing what I do. I don't think you've got to love your job, but liking it's definitely a bonus. You know, if you're doing something you don't like, stop it now. Life's too short. You know, just don't do it. I quite like doing my job. I get to see different people all the time. I'm a social creature, so this isolation is going to kill us off eventually. I like to go into different jobs, different projects. But even though I'm doing the same, I would say I'm doing the same style of work. Each job is different.
Yeah,
and
so you like the variety.
So I like to fit a kitchen, and I like to go to a bedroom, I like to go to a study. Then I might like do a floor, and then some skating boards and some internal work. So even though it's the same, it's varied.
Yeah.
So my ideal projects really are what I'm doing. Maybe sometimes I'd like to do something a little bit out of my comfort zone. But that seems to happen with the company I work with. You know, as soon as I get me feet comfortable, that I've got a little bit of repetitivity, they'll chuck something new in the mix, and they'll be like, "Oh, right, well, I've never done this before, and let's give this a go." So I think quite lucky in that regard.
Keep sharp, isn't it, and have to keep thinking. Is it a mixture of what they give you and your own jobs, or is it are you mainly fitting for them?
Well, I used to work for quite a different amount of builders, different joiners, different companies. But then with the You Scribe idea, quite a lot of my time now is taken up with the You Scribe business. So
go on, then tell us about all that. So tell us that from the beginning. You Scribe, what it is, how you started it, etc.
yeah, so the tales actually cross over. So the company that I'm doing the work for now is one of the companies I did work with, Scott. So that's how we kind of met each other.
So is he another fitter?
Yeah, Scott. So it's literally just the same as me. Actually, Scott. Going to give him a little bit of a shout because he's worked for Christians. You know, Clive Christian.
The name rings a bell, but honestly, I'm not too sure. Is that?
Yeah, you do Google that, you'll find out.
Okay.
Very, very, very high end furniture. So, we are talking some of the richest people in the world go to Clive Christian for bedrooms, kitchens, and furniture. Okay. So he doesn't do anything different than us. It's the same kind of work. But you just imagine, for example, he's done jobs for Rod Stewart. The guy that owns a Lego company. He's done, he fitted the showroom over in New York. So, Scott's very good at his job. Very good at his job. But we met on Twitter, social media, funny enough. So, I would use Twitter for posting my work back in the day. And so was Scott. And then, you cross over because obviously the local area and how these social media things work. So then I came across Scott. We met in the local timber merchants a couple of times as we were passing, had a little chat. And I knew of the company that he was doing a lot of work for. They were after somebody to help with their workload. So I dropped Scott a quick message over Twitter and said, I've seen this job, mate. Is everything going okay? You haven't fell out with them. I was thinking about maybe introducing myself, just doing the honourable thing and saying, listen, you haven't been kicked out, have you, kind of thing. I don't want to be going and taking somebody else's work. Do you know what I mean? But no, he said, no, there's a couple of the guys are getting really old now and they're phasing them out. So they need some other people, need some young blood on the scene is what they needed. Yeah. So that was kind of how I introduced myself to that company. They kind of put me and Scott together on a few jobs because some of the jobs are quite big that needs two fitters. We were on one job in particular in an old listed building, an old church actually. And it was being all completely redone. And we were doing this really nice 1909 kitchen. It's a PWS kitchen. And the scribing was...
Just backtracking a bit, what's that 1909 kitchen? Was that?
Yeah, so a lot of guys might know if they deal with PWS.
I know of PWS, a big UK distributor.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anyone will listen to the podcast, but I've always had great service And they've always looked after me when I use PWS, and I like the products. And the company that I actually do the work for now, they use them products. So it needs a transition. Now, the 1909 is like it's a lot of slab doors and in-frame doors, but I would say it's their top line.
Okay.
Top line one. So it's expensive stuff to buy, but it's beautiful. It's lovely stuff. So this 1909 kitchen, it's a traditional style kitchen. So imagine this old church is having this traditional style kitchen. It's like a listed building, so not many things can be altered or changed. And the scribing work was next level, as you can imagine. So we're working on these scribes, and I'm moulding one, and Scott's holding the other, and we're
so
both...
you going up to old stone walls, that sort of thing?
Yeah, stone walls, stone floors. Everything's out of square. The chimney breasts are all out of square. Everything's just out of square. It's just an old British building, isn't it? It's sat there for hundreds and hundreds of years. So you're faced with the problems of, do you make it level or don't you make it level? To suit the actual property sometimes. Yeah, that's it. Definitely what looks best. So a lot of the scribe work was very time consuming. And what's great about sometimes working with somebody, and again with the social media thing, is you can bounce ideas off each other. So I've seen you do things and I've gone, oh, that's clever. Why haven't I ever thought of that? And then similar for other people, you see things and you go, oh man, why I think of that? I've been doing it this ridiculously long-winded way all this time. But that's what you learned and that's what you know.
Yeah.
And that was it really. So we're on this job and we're having this conversation of how we do stuff and how I do stuff. And a lot of them were very similar and a lot of them were quite different. Because Scott's got a penchant and a problem for buying tools.
Okay.
So if you think of it, he owns it. And if he doesn't, he'll be getting it soon.
Okay.
So I was like amazed. I was like, wow, look at this. And, using some of his tools and some of the things that he did from his job compared to how I would do mine.
Yeah.
And we both came to the conclusion that what we were doing was really long-winded and a bit frustrating. And it was pretty much there and then, that lunchtime, we sat down, literally sketched out a rough idea of something that would help us to do the job. And so was born the You Scribe.
And so right from that first sketch, did it have that sort of high-back chair look?
No. It was so I would say that the version that we have now is a far more simplified version of what we began with. So obviously when we started off, it was a little bit more complicated to try and make it work. Then the difficult part in any of this industry is creating your idea. There's people out there now, and there's people that still contact me now with some fantastic ideas, but getting that next stage, that's a big jump. It can be very expensive, very time consuming, and it can be very difficult.
So prototyping and then manufacturing.
Yeah, it can be very difficult. So we decided, can we make one in wood? And that didn't work. Can we make one in perspex? We ordered some perspex, and that didn't really work. And we were thinking about plastics and some other ideas. And the actual moment when we could create the product that we had in our heads was 3D printing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
3D printing.
So did you just decide to get a 3D printer, or did you outsource that to someone?
No. Scott bought one. So again, you've got to remember this stage, there's no business. There's nothing. It's just two blokes work together on occasion, having a chat about something that might make the job easier. There's no intention of creating a product per se. So Scott bought a 3D printer, and we had a conversation about, we could print You Scribes. We could, again, I'm saying You Scribe, it didn't have a name then. We could print that thing we were on about. So Scott got into 3D printing, and remember a little bit at the time, this 3D printing is not as simple as it is now. You needed to be quite technological or literate in certain maybe coding and designing and different apps and crossovers and importing and exporting of files, whereas obviously a lot that now has been very much more simplified. So again, it was a longer process to get the product out, but fair play to Scott. If it was me, we probably wouldn't be looking at the product now because I'd have give up, because I'm not that guy. Whereas Scott can put his head to it and he'll get down on it and he'll really work hard at them aspects of the business to get the product out there. So he bought a printer we call Old Blue, and it's still alive today. But that one gave birth to the You Scribe.
Okay.
So the first design is nothing like the design it is again today.
Have you
We
got
had
any?
a
Have you got
few.
any photos around of what the first design was like?
What I'll do, I'll send you some. We've got
Would you want to put them on your
version.
Instagram, or would you rather not? Would that just confuse people?
No, I can. Yeah, I could post them on
Just
mine. I
stick
could.
on your Instagram and maybe
Well,
mention the
to be honest
podcast,
though,
and
what
I'll
I was gonna
relink.
do
Go on.
is make a few short YouTube videos over time,
Oh yeah.
explaining the beginning of the products, explaining where the
Okay.
product's gone, and the
Yeah.
different
Well, we can.
prototypes and
We'll
things
look
that we
out for
have got.
them whenever. Yeah. Whenever you want to
That's
get
it.
that.
But I'll happily send you some to put
Oh.
alongside this, mate. No worries, because
Okay.
we've still got some of the originals, and actually, some people have still got some of the very, very originals. Some of the people
Is
that
that right? So
bought
did
them.
you? So you shipped some out in the early days that were a different
Yo,
style?
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys that have got um, ones that you'd have never seen
Uh-huh.
because they were just people that we spoke to on Twitter at the time that got on board, and that's the next step. So Scott had printed these jigs, and he
It
gave
just
me
it
three,
just
and
occurs
he
to me.
had three.
Sorry to interrupt. There's
No,
probably people listening that never have heard of this, and
exactly.
still thinking, what on earth is this? Like how does it work, and what do you do? And it's hard. It is quite hard to explain, isn't it? I mean, I've had people have heard of them from my videos because I'll just show them in
Yeah,
use in my videos, but
yeah,
early
which I
on,
appreciate. Thank you very much.
oh no problem. Early on, I think they just were there, and I might have mentioned them, but I didn't really explain them, and people went, what is that? And then they really, even when they went to look up more about it, some people were saying, I'm really struggling to get my head around why you need
Yes.
this and what it does. And have you found that a problem communicating that?
Yeah. So if I evolve the story slightly, so Scott had got the
Yeah.
jigs, he printed the jigs, and we started to use them. Well, I started to use them. Scott didn't reuse them very much. It's just the funny story is he didn't really use them
Just
much
really put
at
all the
all.
effort into it. Well,
Yeah,
just through force of habit, he just
I
flipped back
think
to
at
what he
that
used to
stage,
do.
I think at that stage, yes.
Yeah.
And part of the next story is the habitual
Yeah.
use of your tools. I think
Yeah.
so. I got them and I adopted it pretty fast. So I found myself using them more, and then finding myself that I wanted to use them instead of the old methods that I used to use.
Okay.
So it became more in my mindset. So I'm going to scribe, I'm going to get the UScribes. I'm going to scribe, I'm going to get the UScribes. And that's just how I went about it. So we had a conversation a couple of times. I said, oh, these are really good. They're working really good. And that was kind of it, because obviously you got to remember, we didn't design or create a product for a business idea. There was never the reason why we made it. And at this time, we're 3D printing all kinds of mad things because we've got 3D print it. It's amazing. You can make anything.
So it's just one idea, was it? How many you're just messing around with?
Oh, we've got like about 10 different ideas, Alistair.
Okay.
If we could afford to manufacture them all, they'd hopefully be in circulation, and that's where we'll hopefully take the business.
Well, yeah, maybe one day. I mean, it does seem to me like it's taken off. Sorry, jumping the gun now, but I'm seeing them available elsewhere. Isaac Lords, all over the internet.
That's it.
Yeah.
Of course, we've got some great retailers who've started getting on board, and anyone that's listening that's a retailer, you're more than welcome for a price list. We will happily do business with shops and stores. That's our main goal.
And we'll put links below again, either below or Instagram or wherever.
DM us, send us an email. We're happy to spread the word. And again, how we've done so well is through social media. And one thing that we've always valued is the support from people like yourself, Alistair, and all the other guys who just take it upon themselves to, when they use UScribe, is to show other people how good results they're getting or how much they like it. Or even the people that don't like it. At the end of the day, we're not someone that forces it on people. We're there. We exist. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people from like over 26 different countries in the world have bought them and reported back that they love them. And there's going to be the guys that have tried them and still like doing their own way. And I'm not here to patronize people. I'm not here to tell people how to scribe. I'm not here people to tell the job. We're just here with an idea that was born through social media and an idea of two tradesmen to simplify and help making scribing a bit easier. And I always like to go down that route and explain that to people, because I think sometimes from the outset now we look more polished and more professional, because we are an operating business, we're a limited business, we're dealing with professional companies, so we want to keep up a professional approach. But at the same time, we're not them people that, like, some companies are going to say, look at this tool, you've got to have this amazing tool, you need this latest drill, you've got to have this is going to revolutionize your life and change your workflow. 50% of the time you're just thinking, oh,
Well,
jog on.
no, that's right. There's a lot of credibility, I think, to the business because you are fitters, and people can go on Instagram, and it doesn't take a lot of digging to find your account as just as another tradesman. One of them who understands you're a fitter. You're It seems clear you're the face of the business, right? So,
Yes, So I'll tell you what, I'll be able to go back one more step because I'll clarify a few things for you. So I was on a job using the UScribe Jigs, and I work alongside an electrician quite a lot of the time in my work because we do a lot of integrated lighting and things on the work. So he will be there for 1 to 2 days most days. I'm scribing with the UScribes, and he asked me, "What is that you're doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm just scribing the top scribe," and he's telling me about how the previous fitter that used to work with John, who bless him was 70 odd, we used to do the scribes. I said, "Oh, that's how I used to do it," but this was, driving me insane. And me and Scott had this little idea, and this is how he holds it up. And I'm doing a top scribe, long 2.7 top scribe, and he's like, "Oh, that's brilliant." He says, "I can do your job now." And I was like, I suppose in one way, yeah, because you're simplifying the process quite a lot. And as long as you can use a jigsaw or a table saw to cut to a line, we've taken out some of the steps that may prove tricky for people.
Yeah.
And he says, "You should sell them." Laughingly and jokingly, I put a post on Twitter tagging Scott saying, "We'll go on Dragon's Den, we'll call it the Thingy-mabob, and we'll make millions and we'll clear up." Well, somehow that seemed to gain traction pretty fast.
Oh, really?
So we got lots and lots and lots and lots of messages to our account saying, "Oh, can I have some? They look great. Can I have some? Can I have some? Can I have some?" And that was the birth of the business side of things.
And you never did go on Dragon's Den, did you?
No.
Because did you just find you didn't need to?
I think any business at some point could do with investment.
Yeah.
Recently I've spoke to, I think his name's Tyrion or Tyrion. I forgot how you say his name, but the guy is the inventor of the Pipe Easy tool. You may have seen it online. It's for marking pipes out and stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
He did go on Dragon's
I've seen
Den.
that episode. Yeah, I have.
Guy from Manchester.
Yeah.
Really cool pitch. And for him to get his product out there, it's going to need a big investment because the way the tool's made with injection molding and some of the principles and processes need put in place, it's a very, very, very expensive industry. So you would either have to go down the route of maybe remortgaging your house on a gamble or, like you say, selling some of the company for investment.
Yeah.
So luckily, or you may say stubbornly, we've decided we're going to do it our own way for as long as we can for now.
And how are you manufacturing
no one's going to say
they're
no.
Not all 3D printed still, are they? Are they injection molded?
No, so we started 3D printing them because the people were asking for some. So we sent out a few sets on a whim. Scott printed some sets, sent them out to people. And then, again, just because we're tradesmen and we're just talking to people as we would normally do on social media. Again, this is Twitter at the time. There's no Instagram profile. More people. So Jamie Anderson was a Scottish guy that had some very early doors. Julian, Orwan Jules, and John Jones, who you spoke to on your podcast, and many other people just started putting it on their social media feeds. And then we were in trouble because we got like orders of hundreds, and we just physically couldn't print hundreds. We got another printer to try and keep up with the demand, but the demand was just, I think Scott's printers were running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whilst we're doing our job.
Oh, I see. And
so his wife's coming in from work and taking print things off the bed and restarting the printers whilst we're still at work. And,
so at that stage, was it quite a tight little business? I mean, were the price you were selling them for with shipping and the time and everything, was it quite worthwhile?
Well, initially, like you say, we just sent up a PayPal link. And what's funny is if you went on the PayPal link, it was a massive warning sign. If anything, it would scare people off that they're going to get scammed because the PayPal link, it was a strange arrangement how things used to work then. And so people would just follow a PayPal link that we would post up on Twitter and eventually on the Instagram page that people would follow, pay £10 or whatever it was at the time. And then as soon as we made them, we'd ship them out in a little brown jiffy bag. And so that carried on for probably 4 or 5 weeks until Scott I just saw one time and we had a conversation. He was so overwhelmed with trying to get them out the door Then they start slowly creeping to other countries. Aspects of the business become very time consuming. Then we had to outsource the manufacturing. Again, there was still 3D printing, but we found a guy in Sheffield actually, who was an expert. And this will come back to another few things. We never went to the cheapest guy. We never found the easiest guy. We always found an expert because we're not experts. So we want to find out how you do it and how the machines would do it without us giving it to people. So we got the answers for the questions. Because again, it comes back to something we spoke about earlier. If your product's no good, your work's no good, you're going to fail early doors.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to be sending out a lesser product. If anything, we wanted it to be made the best it could at that time in 3D printing. So we found a guy who he actually builds 3D printers for industry. So if you want a 3D printer that'll print you a boat, if you want a 3D printer that'll print you a 6-foot Christmas tree, this guy will make you a machine to create this. So he's like next
and he's
level.
in Sheffield.
So for him, he's based in Sheffield. I'm trying to think what the company's called. We do retail, Darren's called.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if you can just tap him up for stuff.
Sure.
You need an order base. It's not quite a...
It's not
he
consumer.
might possibly do you some prototypes.
Okay.
Yeah, he might make you some prototypes for a few quid. But the way the 3D printing industry has gone now, you could probably buy yourself a 3D printer and prototype yourself some stuff pretty easy anyway. The scalability and the ability to create things in CAD software and import them is far easier these days. You can do it. Anyone could do it, I'd say. But Darren used to we would send out orders of hundreds and hundreds to Darren, and he would keep sending them us back and would keep shipping them out. And as you can see now, the business carried on growing, and just purely through social media, it was great, absolutely great.
Yeah, it does seem. It seems
it's
like
being able to fund
it seems
itself.
like it's grown organically, and that seems to me like a great way to grow because you haven't been putting out ads where you're forcing it on people and being all salesy, because it didn't take me long to realize lots of people are using this, and that's a recommendation in itself. You just keep seeing it on other fitters' pages who you respect.
Again, another thing what we say is we are tradesmen, we're not salesmen. We're never going to be salesmen because that's not who we are, and I'm not going to pretend to be one, or I'm not going to try to be one for a start. I'm a tradesman first. So
well, I've been told that...
It comes back to your previous question. No, sorry, but it comes out with your previous question. Somebody then had to be the face of the business, because the biggest problem that we've got is, like you're saying, how do these work? What are they? Where does the pencil go? And the amount of questions that we get still, not as many now because of the way social media works and some of the YouTube and some of the things that we've got in place. Some of them questions get answered before.
Or you can point people
initially,
to
the
a
amount
video
of
once it's
questions
up there, can't you, rather than typing out the same thing.
Yeah, that's it. You're right, Alice. You're completely right. But yeah, so the amount we would get 50 to 60 questions a day for weeks and weeks on end. So it was very time consuming. It's very time consuming now, but it's a business now. It's the infrastructure's there. It's a different kind of work. But initially, just to answer questions was very difficult. So then we took the standpoint that Instagram would be the platform, because at that time it was completely on the ascension. Instagram was going through the roof. So we thought, well, Twitter was dead, really, and it is a bit dead now.
I was wondering what you think about Twitter. I never got a Twitter account. I'd always, sounds ironic saying this now, but I always wanted to limit my social media work because I'm quite a distractible person, and I knew it wasn't good for me. That's kind of gone out the window. But I have at least kept it to make. Well, to be honest, I've kept it to Instagram really, because I only really post on Facebook as a repost from Instagram, which is one of the things I liked about it. It's like 2 in 1. Because they're both owned by Facebook.
That's the same company.
And then I do my YouTubing stuff. But I just thought I'm going to draw the line at Twitter, because if I've got a whole other account to monitor and get distracted by, it's just too much.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had the same thing. We had a Twitter account separate, Facebook account separate, Instagram account separate. Now, most things that we do through Instagram go over to both Facebook and Twitter. I mean, sometimes we'll use them independently, because obviously you should be using them independently. They shouldn't just be a throughfare. But for most businesses, I would say the Instagram and their Facebook and then the Twitter in that order. And I mean, we've also got a TikTok account and a few other social media accounts that we've tried in the past. And, you know, I tend to do content across all four, but that's just how my job's kind of evolved. Someone needed to be the face of the business. Scott didn't want to. He has got a face for radio, bless him. So, but we always joke about that. No, he's a brilliant guy. But yeah, so it was a case of, well, how do we use it? What's going to be the easiest way of showing people to use it?
Yeah,
through video.
it's the way forward.
Instagram started the stories, and then one time I built up the courage to do it because nerve-wracking. It was completely a nerve-wracking experience to start off with video recording yourself. And plus, I like to step back and go, I never had Instagram. I never used Facebook, and I rarely used Twitter. I was that guy. So it was completely like throwing myself into the deep end. I didn't know how to use the technology. I'd never had the app, and now I'm standing in front of it.
Yeah.
So it was a very difficult transition in the beginning.
Yeah, you see, I've got to say, you seem in your element, and you do a great job. You're very watchable, and you're quite funny as well. So I think you do a great job as the face of the business.
Well, I like to say, Alice, I'm an open book. How I'm talking to you now, as I would talk to anybody, and I would treat anybody. I'm not that guy that pretends to be something.
I think that's
not.
key. Being yourself.
And
if you're gonna put yourself on camera, you can only sustain it if you can be yourself.
Yeah, in short, I could say obviously we evolved the business from 3D printing to injection molding. All the products now
know that. Yes, I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. The 22 mil version is still 3D printed, but again, it comes down to supply and demand.
Yeah.
The 16, the 18, and the 19 are the most popular. They ship around the world every week, regularly. So we needed to bring the business into a completely professional finish because people are spending their hard-earned money on our product. So we should be giving the best product that we can. And that's not just some sales thing again. That's just the reality. If I'm buying tools, I don't buy the cheapest one. I buy the best one or the one that's most suited for me. So we needed to bring the tool as simple and as basic and as silly as it may seem sometimes. It still needs to be of the best quality it can.
You were just saying about moving to injection molding. Was that with the guy in Sheffield, or was this a step beyond?
Not at all. So again, story's so long-winded. I'm so apologise.
No, go on.
We've made some great contacts with, like I say, other firms and other companies, and you've probably seen Keyblades and Fixings.
Yeah.
So Keyblades and Fixings, they're friends of ours. We do trade shows with them. Well, we were doing trade shows with them before we all got put into lockdown. Yeah. But that's a different story. The lads are from Portsmouth. We've known them. We've met them a few times through doing, I say, trade-related things. But initially, when we started You Scribe, we went to a few trade shows just as ourselves, just to. Well, me and Scott went to a few anyway. We quite like going to them, seeing the new products, seeing what it's about, and gain some insight into different things. So we met the lads, we had a quick chat, and they were actually doing work for a guy that owns a company that injection molds, amongst other different things.
Okay.
So we said, mention to him next time you're there in his house doing some work that we're looking to, injection mold our product. And then, long story short, we went to Portsmouth. We met with the guy. Fantastic company. He makes. It's an amazing business. They make things for super yachts. They make things for Aston Martin. They make things for the NHS and products that you probably use every day in different aspects. It's a fantastic company. And again, he isn't the cheapest. We didn't find the cheapest guy. We found someone that we could trust to make us the best product possible, and that's who we went with.
Sounds good.
And that was the birth of the injection molding. So that's where all our products are now. Well, the three main products, shall I say? Obviously, the 22mm products and the shims, they are still 3D printed, but that just comes down to actual, people wanting them. The actual.
The demand
selling of them is it's very low in comparison to the others.
And is that because, am I right thinking there's a very high setup cost to create the mold?
Yes.
And then if you've got the quantity,
I would probably say most people get put off with their designs or ideas or their prototypes when they come across the cost of injection molding or tooling of their ideas. That's a very expensive product.
Do you mind giving us the ballpark of the sort of cost?
Completely open book. So every time you want to injection mold a product, it goes into a steel block. So you need to buy the steel block. The steel block can be quite expensive, but then also inside that steel block, they have to tool the shape of what your product is. And they also have to think, where will there be any moving parts to create holes or slots? Again, which increases cost. If you just want to make a green chair, it will be less expensive than making a green chair with a hole in the seat and a slot in the back, because there's moving parts. So then moving parts have to be factored into the design in the actual tooling itself. So each mold will cost you between £6,000 and £7,500 just to create. That's without making anything. That's just to create the mold to go into the machine. Then obviously you need to pay for the machine time and the product cost each time you send an order through. So you can see there's 3 popular sizes that go into our machine, and you don't need to be a genius at mathematics to realize how expensive that becomes before you actually sell any of your products.
Yeah. And have you paid that off again, if you don't mind me asking? How's the business looking with that sort of investment?
So how it worked initially, we both invested some of our own money to get the initial injection molding block tooling made for 18mm version of the jig. So obviously that's the most popular one. It's the flagship green. That's the one that we decided we'll take a punt at and go for. And that paid for itself pretty fast. I won't lie to you. I think we'd recouped the money within, say, 2 to 3 months of that, which was fantastic. So then we just said to ourselves, well, if we make enough money, we'll invest into the next size. We're making some more money, we'll invest into the next size. And that's what we've done. So really, the business has generated quite a lot of income, but at the same time, majority of it, I would say 90% of it, has all gone back into the business to where it stands today.
Well, it's quite an achievement to have done that. So you've effectively bootstrapped the business, right? You haven't given away any equity in it to an investor.
No.
So that's quite an achievement. And that's once you got beyond this phase now, then you're away.
Well, technically, Al, it's down to everybody else too. Now, this is going to sound pretty cheesy, but I don't mean it in this way, because we are only who we are because of the people that have supported us.
Yeah.
You know, similar to just yesterday, I was speaking to John JCH Cabinets. You may follow him on Instagram. He's South Carolina. He's
the guy. He's just done a story of it. I just saw it before we came on. Of him using it. Yeah, he's got loads of followers, hasn't he?
John's got a great following, and he is really good at his job. I mean, if you don't follow him, you should. I mean, obviously, some of them, the American style of work doesn't automatically transition into our style of work, but the principles and how he goes around explaining his stories is very good. You can learn a lot from John, I would say, and I've watched him and picked up tips and tricks through I've probably learnt more off the last 2 years of Instagram than I did in the first 10 years of my job. It's crazy. But people like John sharing it obviously creates following and creates sales.
Yeah.
And that's just how we've gone about it. Similar to people like yourself, Alistair, and Peter Millard. People have took their time to review the product, use the product on their social media and their YouTube. And there's so many more. John Jones and Julian, Derek Barrett. There's so many people that I could, thank and say, you are part of why we are. And that's the truth. We work hard at it, me and Scott. I don't want to say, we don't deserve the credit sometimes, because definitely Scott does. He doesn't get seen. I'm the one answering I'm the one answering the questions. I'm the one taking the praise when it comes. But, Scott's there doing his work. He does it all behind the scenes, and without him, without both of us, but without him especially, we wouldn't be in this position. But that's how the business has become the business. And I think that business model, especially for tradesmen, so any of them guys who've got ideas, people that ask us questions, and how do you do this? I would say, well, listen, talk to your fellow tradesmen. They're the guys. You can't get no better recommendation and no better support than from people in your industry the same as you.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got your market research right there, haven't you? With that community, immediate feedback on Instagram as well. Great.
Just like say it's positive. I mean, even when it's not been positive, and still get it now, you'll still get guys to send you a message or say, you know, gimmick idea, don't like it. And I've always gone, that's completely fine, dude. No problem. Look, you can do the job. We're not saying you can't do the job. Again, it comes back to, I'm not patronizing people. I'm not teaching you how to scribe. I'm just showing you how to use UScribes to make it easier.
Yeah.
A lot of people jump on board. Some people don't. And again, that's great. We're never going to be that guy. I mean, at the end of the day, you can look at 2 cordless drills. You can look at a track saw. Some people like the Bosch one. Some people like the Festool one. Some people like the Do-Up one. And that's just part of our job. You can't please everybody. And as soon as you realise that you're not going to please everybody, life's a little bit easier.
Yeah, especially when you're clearly pleasing a lot of people.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, so we'll head towards wrapping this up, but I just wanted to mention that we're recording this in the midst of the coronavirus lockdown because people may listen to this weeks, months, years ahead.
Of course.
And I didn't want it to dominate the chat.
No, me neither.
I'm interested as well, just briefly, in if and how that's affected your work, both on the fitting side and the UScribe side.
Yeah, very similar to yourself, Alistair. I've got a young family. I've got a 3-year-old and 9-year-old and a wife at home. Schools have closed, and on public recommendation, we're all on lockdown. And the sooner we all adopted this, I think the sooner we'll all be back at work, and hopefully it'll be a thing of the past sooner rather than later. But I'm a realist as much as I'm an optimist, Al. And my daughter had a little bit of a cough during the last week of the school before they shut down on the Friday. So we took the decision that maybe she shouldn't go to school. At that time, we didn't realise how bad, or maybe not how bad, or how bad this virus may actually end up or not end up, fingers crossed. So we thought, well, we don't want to send her to school if she's feeling a little bit unwell. Luckily, she's shown no symptoms, and she possibly was a normal cough. Yeah. And then with that decision, obviously, then we couldn't really send my son to school.
Yeah.
Because
that's the advice, isn't it?
Yeah, the idea. That's it. The idea and the advice was we all should be being sensible about what we're doing and not leaving the house and mixing with other people. So, unfortunately for my kids, they've had a week off more than the rest. But it comes down to, at the end of the day, it's your health before your wealth, in my eyes. And yes, financially, this is going to be the ruin of a lot of us. You're going to probably have to forget that holiday, and Christmas might be tough. We're moving forward. We've got to be real. But again, I'm an optimist, Al. I'm healthy. My family are healthy. Even if we were only given the bare minimum from the government, that would be enough to feed us. It would be tough, but there's far worse people and far worse scenarios than us tradesmen, sitting back now and probably enjoying what will be the only time we'll actually have retirement, because it's never going to happen now. So make the most of these few weeks with your family.
Well, yeah, there are a lot of plus points, and it's good hearing your perspective on it. I'm doing a lot of soul searching because some people will have seen I did a post on Instagram summarising the government advice, which at the time I made that post, getting on for a week ago, I think now, my interpretation of what they were actually saying was if you cannot work from home, you don't have to. But it's a very controversial issue because a lot of people are saying, even if it's going to really hurt your pocket, you just have to stay at home. And my position at the time was, I really don't think I can afford to, because I'm falling through the cracks of the support as a limited company owner. Don't have another source of income. But in recent days, I am, I think, reconsidering that actually and saying, well, as hard as it hits me, I think. See, I'm wary of saying, because I haven't fully concluded yet, and I've got customers who say, yeah, we're okay with it if you social distance, if you disinfect, and the dilemma for me is it's weighing up the hopefully relatively small and manageable risk of infection if we follow procedure, social distance, etc. I know it's risky, but it's weighing that up against the definite outcome of not working, which is a big financial hit for
massive
me.
Financially, we're all going down the path of potential ruin, and that's the
Yes.
terrifying part. So
Yes.
it's all financially. It's financially. Everything else has gone to the wayside. There's probably
Yeah.
people now who've died who would swap all their wealth
Yeah. Oh, and you're
for the
absolutely
life.
right. You're absolutely right.
But
And I
as
mean,
people,
yeah.
we can only worry about the one main thing. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Al, I hate money. I just hate money. Right? I've never had any, so it's great. But what I mean is, I hate the fact that you've got to slog your guts out each week to give it to somebody else, and then you may own a house at the end of it that you leave to your kids. The system isn't my favorite thing ever, but at the same time, we're in it, so we're in it.
And we can't afford to be obsessed with it, controlled by it.
No, and hopefully,
rich or poor, we've got to
hopefully, Alistair,
respect for
you're
what's
right.
important. Yeah.
Out of all of this, hopefully people will look back and go, it wasn't the celebrities, it wasn't the cars, it wasn't the footballers, it wasn't the house, and it wasn't all these expensive things that you chase. It was real people doing real jobs. They've kept the country going, down to the bin men, up to the surgeons, and everyone in between that's got to work because they haven't got the choice. Whereas we've got the choice to be safe, work safely, or don't work at all. And then I'd like also say to them guys that are working, that might be listening, it's not a dirty word. You don't be ashamed that you are at work when everyone else is at home. If you can work and you can work safely and you're around nobody, then that's brilliant, because we would all swap, because it would take the financial pressure away, that the only pressure that is really scaring us all.
Yeah, because as it stands, there is room for interpretation if you cannot work from home, and we all have a different situation. I mean, I'm very worried, but I have my parents have resources that they can give to me. I really don't want to be cleaning out their whole retirement fallback income, but there are people without that. I'm aware,
Of course,
and everybody's got to make their own choice, haven't they?
And everyone's situation now is going to be completely different. Like you say, you're scaling your business up. So right now, it's possibly at a worse stage for you than others. There's people who are scaled up higher than you that may actually work out okay because of the government relief or business rates and things.
So many variables. That's right. I mean, we're without going into all the detail, we're getting less support than someone self-employed, but we've got more outgoings. But then there's businesses with even more outgoings that are accessing grants that we can't access. It's complex and it's a mess, and I think the government's still figuring it out. And what I don't want to do as well, though, is sort of start blaming the government, like having this entitlement mentality, because this is uncharted territory, and
that's exactly right.
It brings us all together because we're all hit. And
that's it. It comes down to, Alice, what more can you do now from your home? Nothing. There's nothing more you can do. You can stay at home. We can all try and reduce the spread of this virus, which, is an invisible thing. It's crazy. We're prepping for war, but we can't see it. It's crazy. But at the same time, the reality is that I think we forget there's so many people that are possibly medicated each day. You'd never think about it, that are now really susceptible to being killed by this virus just because the rest of us who will quite happily catch it, maybe get some flu-like symptoms or none, and then go about our day is fine. These people are going to get it and going to be extremely ill, and the weight and the pressure on the NHS is going to be great.
Yeah, so it's serious.
This is all they're doing. They're just trying to relieve that pressure on me, because I don't think we're going to get away from being ill. And if we're all real, it's one of them situations like any bad disease or something.
Managing the peak, isn't it?
It's seen at what point we can get back to normal, and in the meantime, crack on. Like I say, there's some people self-employed who do great every year, and take the benefits of that, who are now really complaining that they're not getting support from the government. But you can't have your cake and eat it. We're all in the same boat. If you want to put £12,000 for your books and pay yourself in dividends, then that's great for you. But now you can't sit here and go, I'm going to get no money. Well, I'm in the same boat as a lot of people. I'm self-employed. My wife's self-employed. She hasn't even got 12 months of books in, so she can't claim nothing. Zero. Zip. Yeah. So we're probably worse than some other people. But at the same time, I'm an optimist, Al. I'm a realist. Think of the bigger picture. If we can save lots of lives by sitting at home and living off bread and jam, then so be it.
Yeah.
We'll all be okay.
And
In the end of it,
we'll
all look back.
we'll get some real benefits out of it as well if we embrace it the right way. This time with kids, if we can just calm
apart from Joe Wicks, Al was wrecking me.
how's your arm holding up with the phone to your ear?
I don't know what these bits of string are on the side of my body anymore.
It was the hardest one today, and it wasn't even his workout. It was this little girl called Amelia that sent one in, and it was all press ups and burpees.
That's it.
Yeah,
killers.
It was.
Absolute
it was
killers.
hard. Yeah,
we'll all go back half a stone lighter, probably a lot fitter than we were before.
yeah. We will. I honestly think a lot of good will come out of this, and I don't mean to minimise the very real suffering. I know there could be people listening to this who have really suffered, and I mean, well, one example, my brother's wife, her dad is very ill, desperately needs a procedure, and can't get it, and it is terribly upsetting because they just can't prioritise that anymore.
Yeah,
so
it's all these after effects. Al, again, it's like the biggest rabbit hole with a million sections spurring off.
Yeah,
it's not just the virus; it's not just the financial implications. There's so many. I mean, it's such a complicated, ridiculous situation at the same time as dangerous that I don't think I want Boris Johnson's job. I don't think I want Gove's job.
I doubt he wants it now. It's not what he expected.
That's a tough job, and whoever's in that seat at the minute has got to bear the brunt of something that none of us could have ever comprehended.
No.
So I'm people will probably disagree. I think they're doing a good job. I'm going to put my hand out and go, you didn't need to do all these things. They're trying their best with everything
the support they're offering, as much as some people are falling through the cracks, and I'm feeling that, I also think that what they're doing is great, because it's
there's no reason. I mean, the flip side is the very, 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 very rich people that run these huge companies, can bail them out by themselves, and the government have stepped in to help them. So there's an argument for and against. Well, should the government be helping these companies? Because I, for one, will go on the line of saying the airline companies, well, they can kiss mine, because they can come begging for money now, but when they comes the summertime and the Easter time, and they want to charge people triple for the holidays, well, Karma has a way of sorting that out.
Yeah, it's a great leveler, really, in many ways.
And that's it. So everyone's going to realise, again, it's not the big companies, and it's not these super rich people who are the ones that help you out in times of hardship. It is things that the government... And the situation's crazy. I mean, I love a good conspiracy theory as well. I'm that guy. I will go down the rabbit hole. So part of me actually really likes it, so you can find out all these ridiculous stories, because I just think they're amazing. Some people are mental. But at the same time, it's nice to see the reality of people, going for a walk with the kids, which they would never do. More people are going for a walk with their kids and going on bikes than they have done in the last 2 years, in the last 2 weeks. So like you say, from this, lots of people are going to, realise how important the family are.
Yes,
and
I think so.
Things like that, which, is, at this moment in time, the most important thing.
Yeah. That's a great message to end on. So,
like one of these really well thought out social media posts you see, but from some plank in Stoke-on-Trent.
No, it's been great talking to you, Dan. Really has. And I think people will like this one. I don't even know how long this has been. I think it's been quite a long chat, but I get a lot of feedback from people saying, just carry on chatting as long as you like, because we'll just stick it on in the workshop or the van, do it in a few parts.
True. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to your podcasts. I don't really want to jump on your podcast and say that I've got one.
Oh, no, dude. No, actually, that's fine. I'm glad you mentioned that, because, tell us about it. I was
planning on doing one quite a while ago.
Yeah.
But with things, I thought to myself, well, do I do it now? It was actually scheduled for this week or next in my head, what I was going to do.
Yeah.
and then every man and his dog's obviously got a podcast going on at the minute because everyone's got a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah.
But like I say, I've always listened to a lot of podcasts. I love the Joe Rogan stuff, and I've listened to them for years and years and years. Some of them are fantastic. But yeah, so I decided a while ago that I was going to do one, and I set it up slowly. And there was a few things in place for a different couple of media versions of it that I can't do anymore just because of the virus. Some of the companies don't want to be pumping any time or effort into that at the moment, which I completely appreciate. But it's going to be called the Job and Knock podcast.
Oh,
we all love a day job and knock.
So is that you?
All of a sudden,
I've seen that.
Yes, mate.
I didn't know that was you. You're everywhere. I just keep seeing it, and I thought, I wonder what that is.
Well, I've used to say. I mean, I'm obviously, as the time's gone on, I've got quite good at social media and using Instagram. So I've used it as a tool to just create a base. So I'll use Instagram, and there will be a web page that will be used for the podcast at some point.
Okay.
But yes, it's the Job and Knock podcast, named solely because we all have a job and knock day. Get in, get done, get paid, get gone.
Yeah, I like that.
So the podcast is going to be loosely around the trade and as well general chat, similar to that we've just had here, Alistair, to be honest.
Well, sounds good. I look forward to it. So, I mean, once it's up, give us the link. I could retrospectively add it to the bottom of this. This is going to have a lot of links under it, this one. But yeah, happy to link to it.
I appreciate that, Alistair. Thank you very much. Like I say, it's loosely around the construction industry. One of the reasons that it was going to be a podcast as a fallen out, but I'll probably explain that in the podcast itself at some point. But I'll hopefully have that up by the end of the week. Just need to clarify a couple of things with a couple of people that wanted to be involved, just to make sure things that are said and things that are relevant are okay to go through. But from then on, it will just be a generally normal podcast with the twist. And I'll try not to swear like I've done today. I've done really well.
You said like you've done today. I thought, has he sworn? I've missed it. So you managed to hold off today?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I do apologise. Like I say, I'm not really a foul-mouthed cretin. Did you slip out?
Yeah. No,
I've done quite well today.
Yeah, you did.
I think you've got a calming influence.
Have I? Yes.
Like your
I'm
manner.
told.
So,
yes, I'm told I'm sort of mellow or something like that.
If you, what you should do, you should branch out. You should read children's books or read the Harry Potter book as an audio book. You'll probably sell quite a few of them.
Yeah, do you know? If I could make my living doing that, I'd probably be quite happy.
You and me both, but no one will understand what I'm saying.
I best go because I promised my wife I'd relieve her from homeschooling at some point
me too,
today.
Alistair.
But yeah, really good chatting to you, and I'll see you on Instagram without a doubt.
Of course.
And look, I might just put this out quicker than planned because I just want to, because we've all got time on our hands right now.
That's it. Go for it, Tal. We've all got plenty of time on our hands, and maybe we'll cheer some people up, or we'll give a couple of hours of listening to people whilst they're it's distraction from what's going on.
Yes.
But it's been really nice speaking to you, Alistair.
You too.
Appreciate you having us on and letting us tell a bit about a story.
Yeah, pleasure.
And really look after yourself, mate.
Thank you. You too, and your family. Yeah, take care.
Fantastic. See you later, bud.
Cheers. Bye.
Ciao, mate.